At my husband's office gala, my place card read, "Pathetic gold digger nobody." His colleagues, especially his smirking female boss, burst into laughter. Still clinging to him, they sneered. As I walked out, I turned to the sew and whispered, "I'd check your stock prices if I were you." "And what do you do, Rebecca?" the venture capitalist asked at Ryan's company dinner party. Before I could answer, Ryan jumped in with a laugh. "Oh, Rebecca plays around with some consulting work from home. Nothing too serious, just enough to keep her busy while I handle the real business decisions." The words landed in the middle of our elegant dining room like a grenade. 6 months earlier, my playing around had saved a pension fund $12 million by exposing fraudulent accounting practices at a manufacturing company. The report I'd written was cited in 3 major financial publications, but according to my husband, I was just keeping myself busy. I smiled politely at the table full of investors and tech executives, while something fundamental shifted inside me. The woman sitting next to the venture capitalist, a pharmaceutical CEO, whose company I'd researched extensively, was nodding sympathetically as if she understood the challenge of managing a wife with hobbies. "How nice that you have time for little projects," she said, with the kind of condescending sweetness that made my teeth ache. "Before we continue, I want to thank you for joining me and sharing these stories that matter. If you believe that women's professional expertise should never be dismissed or undermined, please consider subscribing. It's free and helps us reach more women who need to hear this. Now, let's see how this unfolds." I wanted to tell her that my little projects had exposed more corporate fraud in the past 3 years than her company's entire compliance department. Instead, I reached for my wine glass and wondered when exactly my husband had started seeing me as an amateur. The transformation hadn't happened overnight. 9 years earlier, we'd met in the university library during our final semester. 2 broke students with massive dreams and even bigger student loan payments looming. I was preparing for my corporate finance final when Ryan's constant pen tapping at the next table became impossible to ignore. "You know that rhythm you're tapping matches the opening of that annoying pop song, right?" I whispered during a particularly elaborate percussion solo on his textbook. He looked up with this embarrassed grin that made my heart skip. "Sorry, I think better with background music, even imaginary background music. I'm Ryan, Rebecca, and I think better with complete silence, so we might have a problem." "Or a perfect partnership," he said, sliding his chair closer. "You can handle the quiet concentration. I'll provide the creative energy." That conversation lasted until the library closed. We discovered we both survived entirely on ramen noodles, both dreamed of starting our own companies, and both believed that mediocrity was the only real failure. Ryan wanted to revolutionize how businesses use technology, while I was fascinated by the stories hidden in corporate financial statements. "Let's make a deal," I said as we walked across the empty campus that night. "Whatever happens after graduation, we support each other completely. No competition, no jealousy, just pure partnership. Business partners for life," he agreed, shaking my hand with mock formality. We lived that promise completely during those early years after college. When Ryan landed his first interview at a small tech startup, we celebrated with $3 champagne and spent the entire night rehearsing answers to every possible question. I helped him research the company's technology stack and competitive position until he could discuss their business model better than some of their employees. "You're going to revolutionize their entire approach," I told him as he straightened his tie in our tiny bathroom mirror. "They'd be insane not to hire you. And when you land your first major consulting client, we're upgrading to champagne that doesn't come in plastic bottles," he promised. My consulting business started on our kitchen table because office space was financially impossible. I specialized in equity analysis for smaller investors, helping them identify red flags that larger firms might overlook or deliberately ignore. The work required meticulous attention to detail, countless hours analyzing SEC filings, cross-referencing executive compensation with company performance, and building financial models that could predict trouble before it made headlines. Ryan never complained about our apartment being transformed into a paper-covered research center or the constant humming of my printer during late-night sessions. He'd bring me coffee at midnight and look over my shoulder at spreadsheets filled with numbers that meant nothing to him. "Catch any corporate criminals today?" He'd ask, rubbing my shoulders as I highlighted suspicious transaction patterns. "Actually, I think so," I said. "One particularly productive evening. This pharmaceutical company has been moving research and development costs between different divisions to make their quarterly earnings look better. Their investors don't realize how much money they're actually losing on failed drug trials. That sounds like fraud. Not technically illegal, but definitely misleading. When the truth comes out, people are going to lose serious money. My report on that pharmaceutical company ended up saving my clients over $4 million when the stock price collapsed 6 months later." Financial journalists quoted my analysis, and suddenly my phone rang constantly with investors wanting to hire the consultant who predicted disaster while everyone else recommended buying. Ryan was genuinely excited about my success during those days. At parties, he'd introduce me as the woman who takes down corrupt corporations from our kitchen table, and his pride was completely authentic. We were both building something meaningful, both contributing equally to our shared future. His own career was advancing rapidly through various tech companies. He started as a junior analyst, moved into product management, then secured positions with increasing responsibility and impressive salary increases. I watched him develop confidence in boardrooms and master the political complexities that would eventually attract Reinhardt Tech's attention. "I got the executive strategy director position," he announced one evening, practically vibrating with excitement. "It's a significant jump, but they specifically wanted someone with my background in cross-platform integration. That's amazing." "When do you start? 3 weeks. There's one complication. We need to relocate to Seattle. I know that means rebuilding your client base completely, but this opportunity could change everything for us." I didn't hesitate for even a moment. "Of course we're moving. This is exactly what we've been working toward." Relocating meant sacrificing my established client relationships, but I believed completely in our partnership. I referred clients to competitors, terminated my office lease, and spent weeks researching Seattle's investment community to identify potential opportunities. The financial cost was substantial, but watching Ryan excel in his new role felt worth every dollar lost. What I couldn't have predicted was how professional success would gradually alter the fundamental dynamic between us. The man who used to request my opinion on every decision started making choices independently. He'd return home discussing strategic initiatives and corporate restructuring, but when I'd offer perspectives based on my financial expertise, he'd smile politely and redirect the conversation. "The complexities are different at this level," became his standard response when I questioned business strategies that seemed risky from an investment standpoint. "This isn't comparable to your boutique consulting work." The shift accelerated dramatically when Tyler Jameson became his direct supervisor around our 5th wedding anniversary. Suddenly, every conversation included references to Tyler's innovative methodologies, her extensive industry connections, her visionary approach to corporate strategy. "She's absolutely brilliant," Ryan would say, describing some presentation Tyler had delivered. "She approaches problems from angles that completely reframe the entire solution space." "I tried being supportive, even suggesting we invite her for dinner. She sounds like an incredible mentor. I'd love to meet the person who's contributed so much to your career development." "Tyler maintains an extremely demanding schedule," he said quickly. "High executive meetings, industry conferences, strategic planning sessions. She probably wouldn't have time for social gatherings." Despite never meeting her, Tyler's influence on our marriage intensified significantly. Ryan began dismissing my professional expertise entirely, characterizing my work as specialized compared to his comprehensive corporate responsibilities. The consultant who'd saved investors millions was suddenly too narrow-focused to understand real business strategy. The ultimate test of our partnership arrived when Ryan received an offer for a major promotion requiring extensive international travel. The opportunity was extraordinary, leading Reinhardt Tech's global expansion with a compensation package that exceeded our combined previous income. "This is our moment," he said, showing me the offer documentation. "Everything we've worked toward our entire marriage. What about my consulting practice? I've finally rebuilt my client base here." You could scale back temporarily just until I establish myself in this new role. Then we'll have the financial security for you to be completely selective about projects. That evening at the dinner party, listening to my husband reduce my career to playing around, while strangers nodded sympathetically, I finally understood what our partnership had actually become. The venture capitalist was already turning his attention to someone more interesting, dismissing me as effectively as Ryan had. I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection in the mirror, remembering the ambitious woman who'd once saved pension funds from fraudulent investments. She was still there, buried under years of compromises and diminished expectations. Walking back to the dinner table, I made a decision that would reshape everything. I was done playing small to make Ryan comfortable. The foundation we'd built together was crumbling, but I still had the skills to build something new. The opportunity to rebuild myself came faster than expected. 3 days after that humiliating dinner party, Ryan burst through our front door with an energy I hadn't seen in months. "Tyler wants to meet you," he announced, loosening his tie with one hand while scrolling through his phone with the other. "There's a company holiday party next Friday, and she specifically asked if you'd be attending." My coffee mug paused halfway to my lips. After months of hearing about Tyler Jamison's brilliant strategies and innovative leadership, she suddenly wanted to meet the wife who played around with consulting work. She asked about me. She said it was time she met the woman behind the man. Ryan said with a grin that didn't quite mask something nervous in his eyes. Tyler believes in getting to know her team members, families. She thinks it creates better workplace dynamics. The party was held at the Meridian Hotel, and I spent an embarrassing amount of time choosing my outfit. I settled on a navy dress that struck the right balance between professional and approachable, paired with the pearl earrings Ryan had given me for our anniversary. Looking in the mirror, I saw a woman ready to make a good impression on her husband's important boss. Tyler spotted us the moment we entered the elegant ballroom. She glided across the room like she owned it, which, given her position, she practically did. Tall and sharp-featured, she wore a perfectly tailored black suit that probably cost more than my monthly consulting income. Her handshake was firm, her smile bright, and her eyes calculated every detail of my appearance in the 3 seconds it took her to say hello. "Rebecca, finally Ryan talks about you constantly," she said, her voice carrying just enough volume to ensure nearby colleagues could hear. "You must be so proud of how well he's doing here. We absolutely treasure him." "Thank you. He loves working here." "And you work from home. Is that right? How quaint. It must be wonderful to have such flexibility with your schedule." The word quaint landed with surgical precision, managing to diminish my entire career in a single syllable. "I run a financial consulting practice specializing in equity analysis," I said, keeping my tone pleasant. "How interesting. Ryan mentioned you help small investors with their little portfolios. That's so sweet." Tyler's smile never wavered, but something predatory flickered behind her eyes. "Ryan is so lucky to have someone who can be so adaptable with her career. Not every woman could be so flexible." The conversation lasted maybe 5 minutes, but I left feeling like I'd been dissected by a professional. Tyler had managed to reduce my business to a hobby, my expertise to helpfulness, and my professional identity to convenience for Ryan's career, all while appearing completely supportive and friendly. "She's impressive," I told Ryan during our drive home, testing his reaction. "Isn't she?" Tyler has this way of seeing right to the heart of things. She's been incredible for my career development. 2 weeks later, the first text message arrived. "Happy holidays, Rebecca. Hope you're staying busy with your projects while Ryan handles all the exciting developments here at Reinhardt. So grateful to have such a dedicated team member, Tyler." I stared at the message for a full minute. On the surface, it was perfectly pleasant. Underneath it positioned my work as mere projects, while emphasizing Ryan's importance to her exciting developments. When I showed Ryan, he barely glanced at it. That's nice of her to reach out. Tyler's very thoughtful about maintaining relationships with families. The messages continued with clockwork regularity. Valentine's Day brought, "Hope you and Ryan have a lovely celebration. He's been working so hard on our new initiatives. You're so understanding about his dedication to excellence. Easter thinking of you both during this special time. Ryan mentioned how supportive you are of his career growth. So wonderful that he has someone to keep him grounded. You're just so practical." Each message felt like a paper cut. Small, precise, and designed to sting just enough to be noticed, but not enough to seem intentionally harmful. Tyler had perfected the art of the backhanded compliment, wrapping insults in concern and diminishment in praise. "Am I being oversensitive?" I asked Ryan after the Easter message, which had left me feeling particularly deflated. "Tyler's just being friendly. She includes all the spouses in her communications. You're reading too much into it." But I wasn't reading too much into anything. My years of analyzing corporate behavior had taught me to recognize patterns, and Tyler's pattern was becoming crystal clear. She was systematically repositioning me in Ryan's mind, from partner to appendage. The transformation in Ryan's behavior became impossible to ignore. He started coming home with Tyler's opinions on everything from market trends to lifestyle choices. When we discussed upgrading our kitchen, he'd say, "Tyler thinks granite countertops are outdated. She prefers quartz." When I suggested we take a vacation to Italy, he'd respond with, "Tyler says European travel is overrated compared to exploring domestic markets." The most infuriating part was how he'd present Tyler's advice as if it came from some higher authority. Tyler's insights into work-life balance are really eye-opening, he'd say, completely missing the irony that her advice was pulling him further away from our actual life together. One evening, I tried to discuss a concerning trend I'd noticed in the tech sector's quarterly reports. "The debt-to-equity ratios across the industry are starting to worry me," I said, over dinner. "There are signs of over-leveraging that remind me of the patterns I saw before the last market correction." Ryan barely looked up from his phone. "While Tyler thinks the current market fundamentals are stronger than they appear, she says people who focus too much on traditional metrics miss the bigger innovation picture. Tyler's not a financial analyst, Ryan. This is actually my area of expertise. Tyler has an MBA from Wharton and 15 years of corporate strategy experience. She understands market dynamics." The dismissal was complete. My decade of successful consulting, my track record of protecting investors from fraud, my specialized expertise in equity analysis, all of it had become irrelevant compared to Tyler's general business knowledge. Tyler's genius extended beyond just influencing Ryan's opinions. She orchestrated my exclusion from his professional world with surgical precision. Company events would be scheduled for dates when she knew I had client commitments. She'd send invitations for spouses' optional gatherings, then later mention how disappointed she was that I couldn't make it. "The other executives' wives are so involved in our company culture," she told Ryan during one of their frequent phone calls, her voice clearly audible from the kitchen where I was preparing dinner. "Sarah Chin brings homemade cookies to every event, and Michelle Rodriguez organized that wonderful charity drive. It really makes a difference when families are engaged." The message was clear. I was failing as a corporate wife by prioritizing my own work over Ryan's company functions. Tyler would schedule team-building activities that explicitly excluded spouses, then make sure Ryan came home with stories about how much fun everyone had. Tyler organized this amazing escape room challenge for the leadership team. He'd say she's so creative about building camaraderie. Meanwhile, when other companies hosted spouse-inclusive events, Tyler would find reasons why Ryan needed to skip them. "Tyler needs me to review the quarterly projections that night," became his standard excuse. Slowly but methodically, I was being erased from Ryan's professional life, relegated to the role of the stay-at-home wife who couldn't quite keep up with the ambitious corporate crowd. My breaking point came during a phone conversation I accidentally overheard. Ryan was in his home office with the door cracked open, and Tyler's voice carried clearly through the house. "You have so much potential, Ryan. I see you moving into senior leadership within the next 2 years. But you need to surround yourself with people who understand that level of ambition, people who can match your drive and vision." Rebecca's very supportive of my career, Ryan said. But his voice lacked conviction. Of course, she is in her own way, but support and true partnership are different things. You need someone who can elevate your thinking challenge, your assumptions, push you toward excellence, someone who operates at your level. I stood frozen in our hallway listening to Tyler systematically dismantle my marriage while positioning herself as the solution to Ryan's professional and personal needs. That night, I started keeping detailed notes of every interaction, every comment, every subtle manipulation. As someone trained in pattern recognition, I finally understood exactly what Tyler was doing. She wasn't just undermining my relationship with Ryan. She was conducting a hostile takeover of my marriage using the same strategic thinking she'd applied to a corporate acquisition. The most painful part was watching Ryan fall for it completely, interpreting her calculated manipulation as mentorship and professional development. The man who'd once valued my analytical mind couldn't see the analysis that mattered most. Tyler Jameson was systematically destroying us. The notebook filled with Tyler's manipulations was hidden in my desk drawer when Ryan exploded through our front door on that Tuesday evening in March, practically bouncing off the walls with an energy I hadn't seen since his college days. "Pack your best dress," he announced, tossing his briefcase onto the couch with uncharacteristic carelessness. "We're going to the Reinhardt Tech Annual Gala next Saturday." I looked up from my laptop where I'd been reviewing quarterly reports for a potential client. "We're going to, what now, the company gala. Tyler specifically insisted you come this year. She said, it's time you experience the full Reinhardt culture." Ryan was practically glowing as he loosened his tie. "This is huge, Rebecca. The gala is where they announce major promotions, where the real networking happens. Tyler wouldn't have suggested you attend unless something big was coming." That word, insisted, sent ice water through my veins. After months of strategic exclusion, Tyler suddenly wanted me at the company's most important social event. My analytical mind immediately started calculating possibilities. "None of them good," she insisted. I repeated carefully. She pulled me aside after the executive meeting today and said, "Ryan, it's time Rebecca joined us for the gala. I have a feeling this year will be especially memorable for both of you." He was rifling through our closet now, pushing hangers aside with unusual enthusiasm. "Where's that dark green dress, the one you wore to our anniversary dinner at Giovanni's 2 years ago?" I blinked in surprise. Ryan hadn't commented on my clothing choices in months, yet he remembered a specific dress from 2 years ago. "It's in the back, behind the winter coats." "Perfect. You looked incredible in that dress. Tyler mentioned she's looking forward to seeing you in something elegant." The week leading up to the gala felt surreal. Ryan was suddenly attentive in ways that felt almost nostalgic, like he was trying to recapture some version of us that had existed before Tyler's influence poisoned everything. He brought me coffee in the mornings without being asked about my consulting work with genuine interest, and even suggested we practice dancing in our living room. "I want everything to be perfect Saturday night," he said, spinning me awkwardly around our coffee table. "This could be the moment that changes our entire future." Despite every instinct screaming warnings, I allowed myself to hope. Maybe Tyler had realized that excluding me was counterproductive. Maybe she decided that accepting me was better than fighting me. Maybe this was her olive branch, her way of acknowledging that I was an important part of Ryan's life, whether she liked it or not. I threw myself into preparation with an enthusiasm I hadn't felt in months. The expensive salon downtown gave me a manicure that cost more than I usually spent on groceries. A professional stylist arranged my hair in an elegant updo that made me feel sophisticated and confident. I spent hours researching current tech industry trends, memorizing details about Reinhardt's recent acquisitions and strategic partnerships. "Tell me about the blockchain integration project." I practiced in front of our bathroom mirror. I read the preliminary market analysis was quite promising. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I was stepping back into my professional identity. The woman who used to command respect in boardrooms was still there, just buried under months of being dismissed and diminished. I was ready to show Ryan's colleagues that I was more than just a supportive spouse. I was an intelligent partner with valuable insights and professional credibility. The Cresmore Hotel lived up to every description Ryan had given me. Crystal chandeliers cast golden light across marble floors, and servers in crisp uniforms carried champagne flutes through crowds of elegantly dressed executives and their spouses, walking through the lobby in my green dress and carefully styled hair. I felt confident and prepared. But the moment we entered the main ballroom, something shifted. Ryan's hand on my back felt performative rather than supportive, like he was playing a role rather than naturally escorting his wife. His eyes immediately found Tyler across the room, and I watched his posture change from relaxed to alert.
"There she is,"
he murmured, and I couldn't tell if he meant it as information or anticipation. Tyler approached us like a queen holding court, her silver dress catching the chandelier light with every calculated step. Her smile was theater bright, visible from across the room. "Rebecca, you actually came." The emphasis on actually was subtle but unmistakable, designed to sound surprised and delighted, while implying that my attendance was somehow unexpected or uncertain. "Thank you for suggesting I join you," I replied, keeping my voice pleasant and professional. "Well, Ryan deserves to have his +1 here for such a special evening." The phrase +1 was delivered with surgical precision, reducing me from wife and partner to accessory in front of a room full of Ryan's colleagues. I felt Ryan's hand tighten slightly on my back, but he said nothing to correct Tyler's characterization. "Let me show you to your table." Tyler continued, her voice carrying enough volume to ensure nearby executives could hear every word. "I made sure you were seated with some lovely people who I'm sure will have fascinating things to discuss with you." She guided us through the ballroom like a hostess, showing guests to their designated spots. Other couples were finding their seats, checking place cards, settling in for what was clearly going to be an elaborate evening of corporate celebration. "Here we are," Tyler announced, gesturing toward an elegantly set round table near the center of the room. "Ryan, you're right here next to me at the head table." Of course, my stomach dropped. We're not sitting together. "Oh, didn't Ryan explain executives sit at the leadership table? Spouses have their own seating arrangements." Tyler's tone was apologetic but firm, as if this was standard protocol rather than another strategic separation. I looked at Ryan, expecting him to object or at least appear surprised by this arrangement. Instead, he was already moving toward the head table, his attention focused on Tyler's explanation of the evening's agenda. "Your place card should be right around here somewhere," Tyler said, scanning the elegant table settings with theatrical concern. I began checking the small, cream-colored cards at each place setting, reading names of people I didn't recognize. Jennifer Walsh, Marketing Coordinator; David Kim, Regional Sales Manager; Sarah Chin, Executive Assistant. And then I found mine. The card was identical to all the others. Cream cardstock with elegant calligraphy in deep blue ink, but instead of my name it read, "Pathetic Gold Digger Nobody." The words hit me with the force of a physical blow. I stared at the card, reading it again to make sure I wasn't hallucinating. The professional presentation somehow made it worse. This wasn't a spontaneous insult scrolled in anger. This was a carefully planned humiliation designed and executed with the same attention to detail as the rest of the evening's arrangements. The laughter started as a ripple and built to a wave. The other people at the table had seen the card, and their reaction ranged from shocked gasps to poorly concealed amusement. I heard someone whisper, "Oh my goodness, did you see what her place card says?" Still clinging to him. "After all this time," a woman's voice said behind me, followed by more laughter. The sound grew louder as more people noticed the commotion, and came over to see what was causing such a stir. Within moments, half the ballroom was either staring at me or actively laughing at the elegant calligraphy that had reduced me to a punchline. I turned to Ryan, expecting anger, outrage, or at minimum some sign that he was as shocked by this cruelty as I was. Instead, I found him staring at his water glass like it contained the mysteries of the universe. His face carefully neutral, his shoulders tense, with what I realized wasn't surprise, but discomfort at being caught in the middle of something he'd known was coming. "Ryan," I said quietly, giving him one last chance to defend me, to show some sign that the man I'd married was still somewhere inside the stranger wearing his face. He couldn't meet my eyes. His silence stretched across the laughter and whispered comments, speaking louder than any words could have. In that moment, I understood with crystalline clarity that this wasn't just Tyler's masterpiece of public destruction. Ryan was a willing participant in my humiliation. The silence wasn't shock. It was complicity. The man I'd supported through every career challenge, the partner I'd sacrificed my professional ambitions for, the husband I'd loved and trusted for 9 years, couldn't find the courage to defend me against the cruelest public humiliation I'd ever experienced. I looked around the ballroom at the faces surrounding me, some laughing, some uncomfortable, all witnessing my complete and utter destruction. The weeks of preparation, the hope I'd allowed myself to feel, the confidence I'd carefully rebuilt, all of it crumbled into dust. But as I stood there, holding that place card, something else crystallized inside me. The woman they were laughing at, the pathetic gold digger, nobody had skills they couldn't imagine. And Tyler Jameson had just made the biggest mistake of her carefully calculated career. I walked toward the exit with my head held high, and as I passed the CEO who was chuckling at Tyler's brilliant joke, I leaned close to her ear. "I'd check your stock prices if I were you," I whispered. The taxi driver kept glancing at me in the rearview mirror during the silent ride home from the Crestmore, probably wondering why a woman in an expensive dress was sitting in his back seat with tears streaming down her face. I didn't speak until we pulled into my driveway, and even then I could only manage a whispered thank you as I handed him cash. Ryan's car wasn't in the driveway. He was probably still at the gala, probably celebrating with Tyler and the colleagues who'd found my humiliation so entertaining. The house felt different when I walked through the front door, smaller somehow, like it belonged to someone else's life. I spent Sunday in bed staring at the ceiling and replaying every moment of Saturday night. The laughter, Ryan's silence, the CEO's smirk when I whispered my threat about stock prices. By Sunday evening, something had crystallized inside me. The woman they'd humiliated wasn't pathetic or nobody. She was dangerous, and they had no idea what they'd unleashed. Monday morning, I sat in my home office, staring at my laptop like it was a time machine capable of transporting me back to the person I used to be. The screen was black, reflecting my face back at me, but I could see beyond that reflection to the woman who'd once saved pension funds from fraudulent investments. My fingers moved across the keyboard with muscle memory I didn't realize I'd retained. Password after password came back to me as I accessed databases I'd maintained but barely touched in months. Bloomberg Terminal C, Edgar Corporate Filings databases, industry analysis platforms. The subscriptions I'd kept active just in case suddenly felt like the smartest money I'd ever spent. The first thing I opened was Reinhardt's most recent 10K filing. As I scrolled through pages of corporate legal language and financial tables, something I hadn't felt in years began burning in my chest. Professional hunger, the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of seeing patterns that others missed. "Let's see what you've been hiding," I whispered to my screen. Within an hour, I found the first irregularity. executive stock option grants that were dated suspiciously close to major announcements that would boost share prices. The timing wasn't technically illegal, but it showed a pattern of executives positioning themselves to profit from information before it became public. I pulled up Tyler's employment records through public filings. Her signature appeared on documents approving these option grants. She'd been at Reinhardt for 18 months, and in that time, the questionable practices had accelerated dramatically. My coffee grew cold as I dug deeper into quarterly earnings reports. Revenue recognition that pushed the boundaries of accounting standards. Expenses that were curiously shifted between reporting periods. Research and development costs that seemed to disappear and reappear in different categories without adequate explanation. Sloppy, I muttered, highlighting another discrepancy. Overconfident and sloppy. By Tuesday afternoon, I had enough material to fill a regulatory complaint, but a complaint would take months to investigate, and I wanted faster results. I needed a different approach. The anonymous investor forum post took me 3 hours to craft. I chose username EquityWatchdog47 and wrote an analysis that would be impossible for serious investors to ignore. Red flags at Reinhardt Tech. A deep dive into concerning financial patterns. I included charts showing the correlation between executive stock transactions and company announcements, graphs illustrating the unusual timing of revenue recognition tables, comparing Reinhardt's accounting practices to industry standards. Everything was documented with precise citations to public filings and regulatory guidelines. The post went live Wednesday morning at 6:00 a.m., time to catch investors before market open. By noon, it had been shared across 3 major investment forums and cited in 2 financial blogs. Wednesday evening brought the first surprise, an email to a secure account I'd created for the anonymous posts. Whoever you are, thank you. I've been suspicious of Reinhardt's numbers for months, but didn't have the expertise to document it properly.
Your analysis is spot on. There's more where that came from if you're interested. A concerned insider.
The attached documents made my pulse quicken. Internal emails discussing ways to optimize quarterly reporting. Meeting notes about delaying certain expense recognitions. Most damaging of all, a thread where Tyler explicitly discussed timing announcements to maximize the impact on stock price around executive option grants. We can shift the development costs to next quarter and announce the beta release this Friday. One email read, "That should give the stock a nice bump right before the option grants vest." Tyler's response was even more damning. "Perfect. The board won't question the accounting treatment if the results look good." Thursday brought another bombshell. Someone had forwarded me a screenshot from Reinhardt's internal Slack channel, posted Saturday night during the gala. "Tyler, did you all see Rebecca's face when she found her place card, priceless face, with tears of joy? Serending. I can't believe you actually did it. Savage. Thailand. Ryan said she needed to understand her place. Mission accomplished. She won't be bothering us with her professional insights anymore." The screenshot was timestamped 11:47 p.m. Saturday, less than 2 hours after I'd left the gala. Tyler had been bragging about humiliating me while I was crying in a taxi. I saved the screenshot and added it to my growing file. The pattern was becoming clear. Tyler wasn't just manipulative in her personal relationships. She was reckless and arrogant in her professional conduct, too. Friday morning, I published a follow-up post incorporating the new evidence. This one was titled, "Culture and Conduct When Leadership Failure Extends Beyond Numbers." The response was immediate and explosive. Financial journalists started calling Reinhardt Tech's corporate communications department. Investment analysts began downgrading their stock recommendations. Regulatory bodies opened preliminary inquiries. I watched it all unfold from my home office, sipping coffee and feeling more alive than I had in months. Every news alert, every dropping stock price point, every analyst comment questioning Reinhardt's practices felt like validation of everything Tyler and Ryan had dismissed about my capabilities. By Friday afternoon, Reinhardt Tech stock price had dropped 12%. The company issued a statement about addressing recent concerns raised by market analysts and announced they were conducting a thorough internal review of accounting practices. I knew that internal review would find exactly what I'd already documented. Tyler's fingerprints were all over the questionable decisions, and her arrogance had left a paper trail that would be impossible to explain away. The anonymous whistleblower emails were flooding in now. Current employees, former employees, vendors who'd witnessed questionable practices. Everyone wanted to share what they knew with the person who'd finally spoken up about Reinhardt's problems. One message particularly caught my attention.
I'm a junior accountant at Reinhardt. Tyler Jameson has been pressuring our department to manipulate quarter-end numbers for months. I've been documenting everything because I was scared of losing my job if I reported it. Your posts gave me the courage to contact the SEC directly. Thank you for giving us a voice.
Saturday evening, exactly 1 week after the gala, I poured myself a glass of wine and reviewed the week's accomplishments. Reinhardt Tech was under investigation by 3 regulatory bodies. Their stock price was in free fall. Tyler's professional reputation was crumbling as journalists dug deeper into the culture she'd created. The woman they'd called a pathetic gold digger, nobody had triggered the biggest corporate scandal in the tech industry that year. And I was just getting started. Ryan still hadn't come home. According to his LinkedIn status, he was managing crisis communications for Reinhardt Tech. I wondered if he had any idea that his dismissed wife was the anonymous analyst bringing down his beloved company. As I closed my laptop that evening, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years. Professional satisfaction. The equity watchdog was back, and she was hungrier than ever. The truth had momentum now rolling downhill like an avalanche. All I had to do was step back and watch Tyler Jameson's carefully constructed world collapse under the weight of her own arrogance. Sunday morning brought the phone call I'd been waiting for. My secure line rang at 7:23 a.m., and the voice on the other end belonged to Marcus Chin, a financial journalist from the Wall Street Journal.
I'm trying to reach Equity Watchdog 47, he said. I know this is unconventional, but your Reinhardt Tech analysis has caught significant attention. We'd like to expand on your findings for a front-page story. I'd been expecting this moment since Friday's market close. What kind of expansion? We've independently verified most of your documentation. Our investigation team has uncovered additional evidence that supports your conclusions about questionable accounting practices. We want to run a comprehensive expose, but we need to ensure our source material is bulletproof.
20 minutes later, I'd anonymously provided Marcus with additional documentation that would make his article unassailable. The Wall Street Journal's credibility would amplify my findings beyond anything I could accomplish through forum posts. Monday's headline read, Tech Darling Reinhardt under federal investigation for accounting irregularities. The article detailed everything I discovered, plus information their investigative team had gathered independently. Tyler's name appeared 17 times, each mention more damaging than the last. By 10 a.m., Reinhardt Tech stock had dropped another 18%. Trading was halted twice as sell orders flooded the market. I watched the chaos unfold from my home office, sipping coffee that tasted like victory. The first news alert about Tyler personally arrived at 11:47 a.m. Reinhardt Tech executive Tyler Jameson placed on administrative leave pending investigation. I screenshot the notification and saved it in a folder labeled Justice Served. Ryan's key turned in the front door at 2 p.m., 3 hours earlier than usual. His footsteps on our hardwood floors sounded heavy, defeated. I heard him drop his briefcase by the entrance, something he never did.
Rebecca.
His voice carried a vulnerability I hadn't heard in years. In the office, I called back, not looking up from my laptop, where I was tracking Reinhardt's continued stock decline. He appeared in my doorway looking like he'd aged 5 years in 5 days. His usually perfect hair was disheveled, his tie loosened, his expensive suit wrinkled.
We need to talk,
he said, settling into the chair across from my desk without invitation.
About what? About Tyler, about the investigation, about everything that's happening at work.
He rubbed his face with both hands.
I don't know how much you've heard, but it's bad. Really bad.
I minimized my browser window and gave him my full attention. What kind of bad? The SEC is launching a formal investigation. The FBI seized documents from Tyler's office this morning. There are rumors about criminal charges. He looked at me with desperate eyes. I've been working with Tyler for 2 years, Rebecca. If they find evidence of intentional fraud, anyone associated with her decisions could be implicated. That sounds serious. It is serious. My career could be over. Everything we've built together could disappear. He leaned forward, reaching for my hand across the desk.
I need your analytical expertise. You're the smartest person I know when it comes to financial investigations. Could you help me understand what they might be looking for? The irony was breathtaking. The man who dismissed my professional insights for months was now begging for the expertise he'd called niche and small scale. Why would you need my help? Doesn't Tyler have everything under control? Ryan's laugh was bitter. Tyler's completely falling apart.
She's blaming everyone except herself, claiming she was just following industry standards. But some of the documentation. Rebecca, I think she might have been manipulating numbers deliberately.
That would be securities fraud.
I know what it would be.
His voice cracked with stress. I'm scared, Rebecca. For the first time in my career, I'm genuinely terrified about my professional future. I studied his face, seeing real fear behind the desperation. Part of me felt sympathy for the man I'd once loved unconditionally, but a larger part felt cold satisfaction at watching his world crumble the same way mine had at that gala. What exactly are you asking me to do? Help me distance myself from Tyler's decisions, review the documents I was involved with, and help me understand which ones might look problematic to investigators. He paused, swallowing hard.
I know I haven't been the best husband lately.
I know I haven't appreciated your professional skills the way I should have, but we're a team, right? Partners for life. The words he'd spoken 9 years ago in that university parking lot felt hollow now, tainted by years of dismissal and culminating in his silence during my public humiliation. When did you last consider us partners, Ryan? He blinked, clearly unprepared for the question. What do you mean? When did you last ask for my opinion on something important? When did you last value my professional expertise? When did you last defend me? When someone attacked my credibility? His face went pale as understanding dawned. Rebecca, if this is about the gala, it's about everything, Ryan. The gala was just the final confirmation of what we'd become. I opened my desk drawer and pulled out a manila folder I'd been preparing for this conversation. Inside were copies of apartment listings, consultations with divorce attorneys, and financial statements showing exactly how much my consulting business could generate if I focused on it full-time.
What is this?
He asked, though his voice suggested he already knew. My exit strategy. I've been rebuilding my professional network while watching your precious mentor destroy her career through her own arrogance. I handed him the top document. A consulting contract with a hedge fund worth more than his annual salary. 3 former clients want to hire me full-time. My reputation for integrity and analytical precision never disappeared. Ryan, I just buried it to support a husband who stopped seeing my value. His hands shook as he read the contract terms. You're leaving me. I'm saving myself. There's a difference. But Tyler's investigation, my career, everything's falling apart. Tyler's investigation exists because someone with my skills decided to examine her practices closely. Her career is ending because she was sloppy and arrogant. Your career is in jeopardy because you chose loyalty to a corrupt mentor over respect for your wife. Ryan stared at me for a long moment, and I saw the exact moment he began connecting dots he should have connected years ago. You know something about this investigation, don't you? I closed my laptop and stood up. I know that truth has a way of surfacing when someone with the right expertise decides to dig for it. Rebecca, what did you do? I reminded everyone that the pathetic gold digger nobody from the gala actually has a PhD in financial analysis and a decade of experience exposing corporate fraud. I walked to our bedroom and began pulling clothes from my closet. I did what I should have done years ago. I stopped hiding my capabilities to make other people comfortable. Ryan followed me, watching as I methodically folded clothes into suitcases with the same precision I'd once used to analyze fraudulent financial statements. You can't just leave. We can work through this. Can we? When did you plan to start respecting my professional expertise? After Tyler's criminal trial. After your career recovers from association with a fraud. After you finally decide I'm worth defending. He sat on our bed, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. I know I messed up. I know I should have said something at the gala, but Tyler said it was just a joke that you'd understand the humor. Tyler told you about the place card in advance. It wasn't a question. Ryan's silence confirmed what I'd suspected since that night. She showed you the card before the event. Didn't she? You knew I was walking into that humiliation, and you said nothing. She said it would be funny. She said you'd laugh about it later. I stopped packing and looked at him directly. Did you really believe that, or did you just not care enough to stop it? He couldn't meet my eyes, which was, answer enough. I zipped my suitcase and headed for the door. On our kitchen counter, I left a note with words I'd been composing for weeks. Ryan, it's not the insult that broke us. It's the silence that followed. The woman you dismissed is the same woman who just brought down your mentor's empire. Maybe next time you'll remember that underestimating people has consequences. Rebecca walking out of that house felt like stepping into sunlight after years in shadow. My phone buzzed with another news alert. Former Reinhardt executive Tyler Jameson under criminal investigation for securities fraud. The equity watchdog was fully awake now, and she was just getting started. The apartment I found was everything our house had never been. Bright clean and entirely mine. Floor-to-ceiling windows in the living room overlooked the city skyline, and morning sunlight streamed across hardwood floors that bore no memory of arguments or silent dinners. The kitchen was small but efficient, perfect for someone who planned to spend most of her time building a career rather than hosting dinner parties for people who didn't respect her. Moving in took exactly one afternoon. 9 years of marriage and everything I truly wanted fit into my car in 6 boxes. I hung my diplomas on the wall of my new home office. The PhD in financial analysis from Northwestern, the certified fraud examiner certificate, the awards from industry organizations that had recognized my work before I'd buried it to support Ryan's ambitions. Welcome to your new life, Rebecca, I said to my reflection in the bathroom mirror that first night. The woman staring back at me looked different already. Shoulders straighter, eyes clearer, mouth set in determined lines rather than the apologetic softness I'd worn for years. Tuesday morning brought the phone call that would reshape everything. Patricia Morrison from Whitfield Capital had been trying to reach me for 3 days.
Rebecca, I've been following your work for years, especially your recent analysis of tech sector irregularities, she said without preamble. We need someone with your expertise as our new research director. The compensation package starts at $200,000 plus bonuses tied to fund performance. I nearly dropped my coffee mug. You want to hire me full-time? We want to build an entire research division around your analytical approach. Your reputation for uncovering problems before they hit headlines is exactly what our investors need in this market. 3 weeks later, I walked into Whitfield Capital's glass-walled offices wearing a navy suit that fit perfectly and confidence I'd forgotten I possessed. My business cards read, Rebecca Chin, Director of Equity Research, and seeing my name in elegant lettering felt like reclaiming a piece of myself I'd lost years ago. My first assignment was evaluating a biotech company as a potential acquisition target. Within hours of diving into their financial statements, I found patterns that reminded me of my early consulting days. Revenue recognition that seemed designed to impress rather than inform. Research costs that moved between categories without clear justification. This company is cooking their books. I told Patricia during our afternoon meeting, their Phase 2 trial results don't justify the revenue projections, and they're hiding development failures in subsidiary accounting. How certain are you? Certain enough to stake my reputation on it. I slid my analysis across her desk. Give me 1 more week to document everything, and you'll have a report that saves your fund millions. Patricia smiled. This is exactly why we hired you. Working again in a professional environment where my expertise was valued felt like oxygen after years of suffocation. My colleagues treated me as an equal partner in complex financial decisions. During strategy meetings, people leaned forward when I spoke, rather than politely waiting for me to finish. My insights shaped investment decisions worth tens of millions of dollars. Rebecca's analysis just saved us from a catastrophic pharmaceutical investment, Patricia announced during our monthly partners meeting. Her due diligence uncovered accounting irregularities that would have cost the fund approximately $40 million. The applause felt genuine, earned, real. For the first time in years, I was being recognized for the work I actually did, rather than dismissed as someone who played around with numbers. The Google alert about Tyler arrived on a Thursday morning while I was reviewing quarterly reports. Former tech executive Tyler Jamieson indicted on federal securities fraud charges. The accompanying photograph showed a woman I barely recognized. Gone were the designer suits and commanding presence that had once intimidated me. Tyler stood outside the federal courthouse, wearing flat shoes and a cheap blazer, her shoulders hunched in defeat. The woman who had built her career on projecting invincibility looked small and ordinary. The charges were serious falsifying investor disclosures, manipulating earnings reports, and conspiracy to commit securities fraud. Each count carried potential prison time and guaranteed professional destruction. I read the article twice, feeling something I hadn't expected. Not triumph, but quiet satisfaction. Justice had been served not through revenge, but through simple exposure of truth. Tyler's arrogance and sloppy practices had created the evidence that brought her down. I'd simply illuminated what was already there. The comment section was brutal, but predictable. Isn't this the executive who humiliated that woman at the company gala? One reader wrote. Karma has an interesting sense of timing. Another comment made me pause. I worked at Reinhardt during the Tyler era. She created a toxic culture where bullying was disguised as high-performance standards. Glad someone finally held her accountable. Tyler had built her entire professional identity on manipulation and cruelty. And now, that foundation was crumbling completely. The same strategic thinking she'd used to undermine my marriage had made her overconfident in her financial misconduct. 6 months after leaving Ryan, I realized the transformation was complete. The woman who had once been dismissed as a pathetic gold digger, nobody was now leading investment decisions for one of the city's most respected funds. My analysis influenced portfolio strategies worth hundreds of millions of dollars. Industry publications quoted my research, and other financial firms tried to recruit me monthly. But the professional success was only part of the story. For the first time in years, I was making decisions based entirely on my own preferences and priorities. My apartment reflected my taste rather than compromises with someone else's vision. My schedule revolved around work I found challenging, rather than supporting someone else's ambitions. Friday evenings, I'd sit on my balcony with a glass of wine, watching the city lights twinkle below, and marveling at how quiet life could be without constant tension and dismissal. No more analyzing every conversation for hidden criticisms. No more wondering if my professional insights would be valued or dismissed. No more walking on eggshells around someone else's fragile ego. The divorce papers arrived on a Tuesday, requiring only my signature to make official what had been emotionally finished months ago. Ryan had included a handwritten note that I read once before filing it away. Rebecca, I know I can never undo the damage I caused. You are always the stronger partner in our marriage. I just wasn't smart enough to see it until it was too late. I hope you find the respect and recognition you deserve, Ryan. The apology felt hollow after years of dismissal, but I appreciated the acknowledgement. Ryan was facing his own consequences. Unemployment, professional disgrace by association with Tyler, and the loss of a wife whose expertise could have saved his career if he'd bothered to value it. As I signed the divorce papers, I thought about the couple we'd once been.
Two ambitious students with dollar store champagne and unlimited dreams. That partnership had been real, but it had also been fragile. When success and outside influence tested our foundation, we discovered it wasn't strong enough to survive. But from the ashes of that failed marriage, something better had emerged. Not revenge or vindication, but resurrection. The woman Tyler had tried to diminish was thriving in ways neither she nor Ryan could have imagined. The truth had done all the work. I'd simply provided it with the opportunity to shine. If this story of quiet justice had you on the edge of your seat, hit that like button right now. My favorite part was when Rebecca whispered, "I'd check your stock prices if I were you," to the seal knowing exactly what was coming next. What was your favorite moment? Drop it in the comments below. Don't miss more empowering stories like this.